Johnny Carson had a lot of people on his show. For 30 years, Johnny Carson was like a friend to people over the country. He was so nice and easy to talk to that it felt like you were watching your friends hang out, not people performing on television. Sometimes bad things happened to the people who were on his show. Some of the Johnny Carson guests died in weird ways. It is still not clear what happened to them after a long time. The Johnny Carson guests who died like this are still talked about today. The thing that is really sad about these deaths is that you see these people on Carson's show where everything's nice and safe, and then you find out what really happened to them. And it is just crazy. Carson's stage is all bright and calm. The way these guests died is just strange and scary. These Carson interviews are more unsettling because of what happened to the guests later on. The Carson interviews show you the people when they were happy and safe on the show. The same famous people who would laugh and talk with Johnny Carson would later be looked into for things they did. One story really stands out. It is about a woman who was on Johnny Carson's show a lot, than 100 times. She died on a beach in Mexico. Nobody knows what really happened to her. This is still a mystery in Hollywood. Johnny Carson's show had this woman on at times. Her death is still not solved. Number 1, Carol Wayne. Carol Wayne is the one, and her story is really mysterious. A lot of people who watched The Tonight Show in the 1970s and early 1980s knew Carol Wayne as the matinee lady who seemed clueless. She was in those Art Fern's Tea Time movie sketches. Carol Wayne played the part opposite Carson, who was being really sleazy on purpose. The thing that made Carol Wayne great was that she looked really innocent and had a good sense of humor. People who like comedy think that Carol Wayne was not a pretty face, she was actually really good at what she did. Carol Wayne was one of the people on The Tonight Show that everyone loved to see. She really knew how to be funny and make people laugh. The thing about her was that she could tell a joke and still look like she had no idea what was going on. This made her seem natural, and it was easy to like her. She had a way of making comedy feel easy, like it was not a deal or anything. When she was on stage, she had a kind of chemistry with the people watching her, and that chemistry felt real. It felt like it was not forced at all. She was a naturally funny person, and that is what made her comedy so good. Wayne's life was really tough when the cameras were not rolling. Her friends said she had a lot of money problems, her relationships were not good, and she was drinking much and taking drugs. Things got even worse for Wayne in 1982. That is when Carson made The Tonight Show shorter, from 90 minutes to 1 hour. They got rid of the Tea Time movie sketches. That meant Wayne did not have her main way to make money anymore. By January 1985, it had been 3 years since Wayne was last on the show. She went to a place called Manzanillo in Mexico with a friend named Edward Durst. Number 2, Bob Crane and the Secret Life of America's Sitcom Star. Bob Crane was on Johnny Carson's show a lot in the 1960s and early 1970s. When people watched Bob Crane on the show, they saw a guy who was funny and smart. Bob Crane seemed like the American man, but he also had a little bit of a naughty side, which made the things he did on Hogan's Heroes seem real. People who study television shows think that Bob Crane was the perfect main actor for back then. They thought Bob Crane was trustworthy like the people in Middle America, but modern and cool enough to feel like he was from their time. Bob Crane was liked by a lot of people. He seemed like a great guy to watch on television. What Carson and the people watching did not know was that Crane had a life that was really different from what people thought of him. On June 29, 1978, Crane was found murdered in a bad way in his apartment in Scottsdale, Arizona. When the police looked into what happened, they found out that Crane had a life that was all about sex. It was a big secret. They found a lot of pictures and videos of Crane with women. One person who was important in Crane's life and also in the police investigation was John Henry Carpenter. He was a man who sold things for Sony. He had shown Crane how to use video cameras. The two men used that technology to keep track of Crane's life, and they got a lot of information about his private activities. This information was very important on. Number 3. Sam Cooke, a voice that was silenced way soon. When Sam Cooke was on The Tonight Show on February 7, 1964, Sam Cooke was not a musical guest. Sam Cooke was an artist who was changing everything at the time of his career. That night Sam Cooke sang A Change Is Gonna Come, a personal song about civil rights that was inspired by the bad things Sam Cooke experienced with racism and segregation. The performance was a big deal in American culture. That is what music historians say. It is very sad that we do not have it anymore because NBC recorded something over the episode. Music historians still talk about this performance and how important it was for culture. 10 months later, on December 11, 1964, Sam Cooke was dead. This is still a big mystery. The story that the police told is that Sam Cooke was shot by a motel manager named Bertha Franklin. She said she did this to protect herself because Sam Cooke attacked her. What happened was that Sam Cooke went to the Hacienda Motel with a woman named Elisa Boyer. She said that Sam Cooke got really mad and she had to run. Sam Cooke thought that Elisa Boyer took his clothes, so he went to talk to Bertha Franklin. At that time, Sam Cooke was only wearing a jacket and shoes. Number 4. Natalie Wood and Death on Water. Natalie Wood was a deal in the 1970s. She would go on Johnny Carson's show, and people would think of her as a Hollywood star. Natalie Wood had done something that a lot of child stars cannot do. She became an actress when she grew up. Natalie Wood had a career that lasted for a long time. People who study movies think Natalie Wood is a big part of movie history. She was in a lot of movies like Miracle on 34th Street and Rebel Without a Cause. Natalie Wood was really good at what she did. The story of Wood's death is well known, but people do not agree on what it means. Wood was on a boat called the Splendor on November 28, 1981. The boat was near Catalina Island. She was, with her husband Robert Wagner, actor Christopher Walken, and the captain of the boat Dennis Davern. At some point that night, Wood ended up in the water. This is really strange because Wood was scared of the water. The morning they found her body. Wood's death is still a mystery because Wood was scared of water, and it is not clear how she ended up in the ocean. Number 5. Dorothy Kilgallen. She was a reporter who knew much. When Dorothy Kilgallen was on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, she was different from the guests. Dorothy Kilgallen had a lot of experience as a reporter. She wrote a column that people over the country read. Dorothy Kilgallen was also a radio host, and she was on the game show What's My Line? For a time. Not many women in the media were well known as Dorothy Kilgallen back then. When Dorothy Kilgallen was on The Tonight Show, she was not there to entertain people. Her opinions, really. People knew that she was a journalist who did important work that could change the way people think about things. She was a journalist, and her work could shape what people talk about. When Kilgallen was on Carson's couch, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy was really on her mind. She was looking into this closely, doing her own investigation into the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Kilgallen did not believe the story about the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. She told her friends that she was almost ready to share some news, including things that Jack Ruby had told her in a private conversation. This makes it more sad that Kilgallen died suddenly on November 8, 1965. Dorothy Kilgallen was found dead in a bedroom that she never really used. She was fully dressed in the clothes that Dorothy Kilgallen had worn the day before. Dorothy Kilgallen was sitting up straight, wearing her reading glasses. There was a book open near her. Her friends and the people she worked with thought this whole scene was really weird because it did not seem like something Dorothy Kilgallen would do. They knew Dorothy Kilgallen and her habits. Even with all these strange things, the people in charge said that Dorothy Kilgallen died because she had too much alcohol and barbiturates in her system. Number 6. Peter Ivers, the new wave visionary who was silenced. Peter Ivers was on The Tonight Show a time ago in the early 1980s. At that time, Peter Ivers was an unusual guy because he was a part of two different worlds. On one hand, there was the mainstream television world of Carson. On the hand, Peter Ivers was also part of the underground music and art scene that was just starting to emerge. Peter Ivers was a musician who went to Harvard. He also hosted a cool show called New Wave Theater. This show was not very popular with everyone. It was really loved by some people. Peter Ivers used this show to introduce people in America to some really different kinds of culture, like avant-garde art and music. This was a deal because at that time people thought punk and new wave music were bad or might even be a threat to society. Peter Ivers was a person because he helped bring new wave music to people who might not have heard it otherwise. Ivers had a show that helped bands like Dead Kennedys and Fear get known over the country. This showed people who would have never met otherwise. Ivers was really good at going between groups of people. This made him a special person in the world of music and culture. The way Ivers died on March 3, 1983 was very surprising. Ivers and his show were very important to bands like Dead Kennedys and Fear. Ivers was found dead in his apartment in the Skid Row area of Los Angeles. Someone had hit him with a hammer. The police did not find any signs that someone had broken into his apartment. This makes it seem like Ivers probably knew the person who killed him. His friends and the people he worked with were really upset by what happened. They could not understand how something bad could happen to Ivers. Ivers was a person. He was very smart, always wanted to learn new things. He did not like to fight with people. Ivers did not have any enemies that anyone knew about. The people who knew Ivers thought of him as a kind and quiet person. The way he was killed was very violent. This was hard for his friends to accept. Ivers was a person, and it is sad that he was killed in such a terrible way. Number 7. David Carradine and Death in Bangkok. David Carradine was really something back then. He was the star of Kung Fu. He played this character, Kwai Chang Caine, who was a Shaolin monk. People in America loved watching David Carradine as Kwai Chang Caine because they were getting more into ideas and thinking deeply about life. When David Carradine sat on Johnny Carson's couch, he seemed like a thoughtful and calm person, which is what people expected from him because of his role as Kwai Chang Caine in Kung Fu. David Carradine was a part of why people liked Kung Fu so much. The way people saw him made what happened to him when he died on June 3, 2009 really shocking. David Carradine was found dead in the closet of his hotel room in Bangkok. He was there to film a movie. They found him hanging from a rope. He had another rope tied around his private parts. At first people thought it was an accident that happened because of something called asphyxiation, which is when someone does something to themselves that stops them from breathing, but it is not supposed to kill them. The story about what happened was really disturbing to a lot of people. It was more shocking when people found out that Carradine's hands were tied behind his back. This made people question whether Carradine could have actually tied himself up. The Carradine situation got people talking and wondering if his death was really an accident or if someone made it look that way on purpose. Carradine's death is still a mystery to people. Carradine's family, his brother Keith Carradine, wanted the people in charge to look into this situation more carefully. They did not just look at the things they found at the scene. Also thought about the things David Carradine had said before. David Carradine had talked about wanting to learn more about things that happened in Thailand, so he could use that for a movie he might make. The people in charge in Thailand finally said that David Carradine's death was an accident, and they did not see any signs that he had fought with someone. The family of Carradine hired a pathologist to look into his death. This forensic pathologist said that Carradine did not kill himself. However, the forensic pathologist did not say for sure if someone else was involved in Carradine's death. When you look at these deaths together, they show the power structures and social realities of the time they happened. The death of Wood brings up questions about violence and if wealthy people are held accountable. The death of Kilgallen shows what can happen when you challenge political stories. The death of Cook shows how deaths of Black Americans were often not taken seriously in the 1960s. For modern viewers revisiting these Carson interviews, there is an unavoidable poignancy in watching people who have no idea what awaits them. Their lives would eventually be defined not only by talent and success, but by mysteries that still resist explanation. These appearances now feel less like entertainment and more like artifacts, moments frozen in time that invite us to look closer, even as the answers continue to slip away.